I might well plenty of Jerusalem, stand to face Jerusalem. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatha Yahweh Basham Yahweh Shai Asherab Nathan Lanawab Hashabeth Bashalawam to Wada Aman. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the Sabbath in peace. Thank you, so be it. The Alim Asherai Machad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayim Aimimya Oh Harim Mayan Yabawa Azaria Yabawa Mayahawa Shashab Shamayam Warataza La Yanathan Lamawat Regalia Yala Yanawam Shashramarka Hanab La Yanawam wala yeshan Shashrumar Yashrele Yehawah Shemaria Yehawah Tazalia Ayo Yed Yim Yed Yawamam Hashemash La Hakaya Wayarak La Balayala Yahweh Yashamaria Makao Ra Yashamar Na Pasha Yahweh Yashamar Habalakya Wabawa Ayat Ma'aithad Wa Aidai Walam Basham Yahweh Shaifa Wada Aman. Psalms 121. I will lift up mine eyes into the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber, behold. He that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper, the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen. Shema Yasharallah, Hero Israel. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Akkad. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh, Eloheinu, Yahweh, Akkad. Deuteronomy 6 and 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen. Tapala Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abiyinawib Shabbat Shemayim Kodash Hayeh Shamke Yahweh Malakwat Kab Taba'at Ratazawan Kab Hayeh Aisha Baratazab Kab Shemayim Nothing Lanawa Lakham Yawam Zad Wasalak Nawa Kabawaf Nawa Kasalach Nawa Kabawaf Yanawa Wala Abiyanawa O Nasayawan Above Hawashinawa Murray Kaya Laka Hamalakwaf Wahala Wathaparaf Waiwalam Aman. Luke chapter 11, verse 2. And he said unto them, when ye pray, say, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, as in heaven, so on earth. Give us day by day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, for we also forgive everyone that is indebted to us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Aisharam 10 Commandments. La'ab Yahayim Lakab Alahayim Akaryim Alapanyat La'ab Tha'ishab Lakab Paso Wala'ab Tha'ibadam La'ab Thalakwakath Shamweb Yehoweb Alahayakab Lashawab Zakar Ath Hayawam Hashabath Lakwadashwad Kabad Abiyaka Wa Amaka La'ab Tharatazak La'ab Thana'ab La'ab Thaganab La'ab Tha'ainad Shakur La'ab Thachamad Ko Ashrad La'aika Aman. Deuteronomy 5 and 7. Thou shalt have none other gods before me. Thou shalt not make thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the waters beneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself unto them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. For the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Keep the Sabbath day to sanctify it, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. 6 days thou shalt labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thine ass, nor any of thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. And remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord thy God brought thee out thence through a mighty hand and by a stretched out arm. Therefore the Lord thy God commanded thee to keep the Sabbath day. Honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee, that thy days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, neither shalt thou commit adultery, neither shalt thou steal, neither shalt thou bear false witness against thy neighbor, neither shalt thou desire thy neighbor's wife, neither shalt thou covet thy neighbor's house, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen. Yeshua, please be seated. Barakatah Yahweh by Shemi Hawashai, Asherah, Afinanawa, Paria Gapin, Tawada Aman. La Yahweh by Shemi Hawashai, Af Yasher Allah. English translation: Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Amadwa, Panyawa, Jerusalem, standing for Jerusalem. Barakatha Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakawam, Abiyah, Wanawa Al Yawan, Malak, Shal, Shamayim, Warataza, Wakob, the Barim, Kayayam, Wagam, Hamashayak, Mayahawe, Arawanawe, Habnawe, Hapalab, Yawaitaza, Yahawashai, Zakarnawe, Yahawe, Bartazawan. Ainka, Yashale, Izarnawe, Mana, Wasap. Yash'ala, oh, nanawa, yum yum. I tha, kayawum yum, makwadam. Babakusha, shalak. Mike ala, watazwadak. Alahayam, la, maganawa, raparnawa, washamar. I'll by kur, shalak. Haroka Shau Yahweh Shai Lanawa Lala Mudnawa Rabiam Kakama Thabawana Wada Aith Shau the Barka Basham Yahweh Shai Thawada Thum Yad Why Walam Aman. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel, most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the Spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ashereb, Natan Lanawa, Hathawab. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us light to see. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ashereb, Natan Lanawa, Award, Lara Awaf. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the ram's horn to call the people. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ashereb, Natan Lanawa, Quran, Hayab, La Korah, Ha'aim. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ashereb, Natan Lanawa, Hasheman, Zayath, Lamashak, Yasha'ala, Yeshabwa. Please be seated. Okay, so Shalom Yasharala. So Shalom everybody that's here in Philly. Shalom everybody that's watching us on live stream, and Shalom everyone listening in on teleconference. Welcome to Ha Yashar Allah Kanas, or the Congregation of Israel, where we teach that the descendants of slaves, as well as the indigenous peoples found throughout North America, Central South America, and the Caribbean, make up the southern and northern kingdoms of the 12 tribes of Israel, once lost, now found. And that we as a people have fallen to a lower state, politically, economically, even religiously, because we broke the laws of God, found the Bible given to us by Moses. And we come out of this lower state that we fall into by turning back to these commandments we broke, by following Jesus Christ. And one way we do that is by keeping the Sabbath holy, as well as the high holy days of the Lord. As we know, we are keeping the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, as we just had our Passover service this just past evening. And I thought of everybody that was able to either join in person or online or on the phone, whatever means you were able to join and partake in the festivities, as we were here pretty late last night. Hence our late start this morning, trying to make sure folks at least got a little bit of rest after getting home, some having longer commutes than others. Right? I think I'm running off for 3.5 hours myself, but nonetheless, Bashar Pasak once again just means happy Passover to everybody, to all the people of Israel. My name is Nabi Azrabal. I have the pleasure and privilege of going through the scriptures with you guys today. God, I see it, Mario. Yeah. Manakatawa, afternoon. If I said morning, so like it. So, as you can see in the bottom scrolling marquee, It's First Chronicles chapters 12 and 13 that we're going over today. First Chronicles chapters 12 and 13. Picking up where we left off last time from First Chronicles chapters 10 and 11. You can write down for your records, according to the Gregorian calendar, it would be April the 12th, 2025. And according to our calendar, it would be the first month. And as we discussed per many scriptures last night, the 15th day. So according to our calendar, the first month, the 15th day. Still in the first day of the Passover, of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is the Passover, as we read on last night's service. All right. So let's get underway. As you see here in the scrolling mark, not the scrolling marquee, but the posted here. This is a Shah, a Ba, and a Tha, or a Shabbat. And then we have a Shah, a La, a Wa, and a Ma, which is just how you say Shalom. And then Ya, a Shah, a Ra, an A, and a La, or Yasher Allah, or Israel. So it just means peaceful Sabbath or happy Sabbath. That's how you would say happy Sabbath. More literally translates into peaceful Sabbath, but that's how you would express that. In case folks were wondering, you may not be familiar with the Hebrew. Okay, so I know last time we were reading the First Chronicles 12, we were reading about David and his mighty men, and reading about their exploits, things they did through their faith in the Most High, granting them power beyond just what their mere training would provide them, right? Because when it comes to being mighty before the Lord, it's not just a physical thing, but it's a spiritual thing as well, right? And the spiritual thing is really what sets us really apart from the rest when it comes to other nations that we fought with. It's not to say that other nations don't have their warriors. We read scriptures about that too last time, or even a song talks about it. You know how I'll make mention of Rahab, which is talking about Egypt in that context, or in Ethiopia, Babylon, this person was born there. But then it says, but when it comes to Israel, that what? This person and that person was born in her, but that the Lord himself shall establish her. So showing how the Most High set us apart from the different nations. And as we're going to read in First Chronicles 12, we're going to read about pretty much going into David consolidating his power, or during this time period when the house of Saul was no longer posing a threat, because the house of Saul, even after his death, they had war with David for many years. You read about that in 2 Samuel, the first couple chapters. But as you get towards the end of the 2 Samuel, like around chapter 5 going forward, we start reading about David consolidating his power, collecting the different heads of the different tribes, and then some of the things that came up were certain situations or events that took place as David was, like I said, consolidating his power, becoming not just a ruler in Hebron, which was his capital city for 7 years or 7.5 years, but then him consolidating his power in Jerusalem and becoming the ruler over all the 12 tribes of Israel as one unit. Okay. So now First Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 1, and it reads, now these are they that came to David to Ziklag, while he yet kept himself close because of Saul the son of Kish, and they were among the mighty men, helpers of the war. Right. So I'm going to go to a catalog, a census, like a listing of all the different chief men that are with him at this time. Let me share this too with you guys. Almost forgot, but just a good map to reference as you read this particular part of Chronicles. But this is from the Bible Atlas, the one that's the free Bible Atlas that's online. I'll just post a link for that in the chat in case you guys were wondering how to get there. Let's see here. So, if I put it down here, it might make it easier to get to, but don't have enough room for banners. Let's see. I got room for one more. Let's see if it can fit. No, it looks like it's too small. Okay. So I'll just have to do it in the chat directly. So what I'm going to pull up now is what I'm going to post here in the link. I mean, in the chat. So if you go to this site, I'm going to share this with you guys. Present. Okay, so we just hide that for a second. I'll bring it back. But this is map number 51 in the Bible Atlas, the link that I shared with you guys. And it looks like it's on page 79 as far as the Bible Atlas by Access Foundation. But as you can see here, this is a map depicting David's rise to power. And you see the references here as far as 2 Samuel's chapters 2 through 6 that we're talking about, as far as his conflicts with the house of Saul that remained, and then him actually being able to break bread with them, and some of the fallout that happened between his top men and their top men. I'm thinking namely between Abner, which was Saul's general or captain of the host, and Joab, David's captain of the host or general, right? But yeah, 2 Samuel's chapter 2 to 6, 2 Samuel's 23, 8 to 17, as well as 1 Chronicles 11 through 14, which we'll be reading today and next time we do Chronicles as well. But this is just a good map to use as a reference for that. If I zoom in some, we can see some of the details. So now we have here talking about when David captured the Jebusite stronghold. Troops of Abner and Joab fight a battle. That's going back to earlier in 2 Samuel, we read before. Also here, Hebron, where city Hebron, you can see it somewhat in the middle where it points out number 4. David becomes king over the united Israel. And then now this number 1 over here in Ziklag is kind of what we're talking about here, where it says David gains stature as he attacks those who harass the villages of Judah from his vassal at Ziklag, right? So you go into vassals, pretty much like other countries that we have pretty much control over, and we might have a person that's in charge there that's operating on our behalf. Anytime you read about vassals throughout history, just so you can kind of have an idea or a location as far as where Ziklag is. It's that number 1 that you see there in the middle. And then we're going to touch on this part when we get to the next chapter where it says number 7, David transfers the ark to Jerusalem. That's that breach of Uzzah part that's in the title of today's video. But we'll provide more information as far as why we call it that and story as far as the way it reads. You can kind of see where Kirjath Jearim is in reference to Hebron, which is a little bit further south. Okay. And dealing with one of our main enemies, one of our main arch nemesis amongst the nations, the Philistines. They're like a hot topic here as far as what we're reading. But yeah, definitely a sparring part that we had to deal with for many years in the land of Israel, dealing with those wretched Philistines. But let's get into the story. Let's read about these certain figures that David is breaking bread with, and that he's combining his power with to make a stronger, united Israel. So let's show this again. Then let's hide this again. And then now let's go back. All right, so back to First Chronicles 12. I hope that was easy to see. I wanted to zoom in enough, but then not too much where it was make it too pixelated. But either way, I provided the link in the chat, so you guys should be able to pull that up and zoom in and look as closely as you like if that was difficult to read. So back to First Chronicles 12 and 1, which says, "Now these are they that came to David to Ziklag, while he yet kept himself close because of Saul the son of Kish. They were among the mighty men, helpers of the war." Okay, so now it says, oh, and also too, you can just write this down. Um, yeah, so touching on I think a period of time that happened a little bit earlier in the story, but a reference that they make as far as uh, dealings with the Ziklag, or they that he dealt with at Ziklag. And pretty much how we acquired Ziklag from Achish, which David had more than one run-in with him. If you go back to earlier on in First Samuel's, when he was first on the run from Saul. But when you write down, when you read First Samuel's 27:1 down to about 7, it goes into how he pretty much he eventually acquired the city, as it was Philistine territory at one point. But like I said, you can just write that down. Uh, First Samuel 27:1 down to about 7 to get that whole story. But now back at First Chronicles 12, it says in verse 2, they were armed with bows and could use both the right hand and the left in hurling stones and shooting arrows out of a bow, even of Saul's brethren of Benjamin. Right? So now naming those that were of Saul's entourage right before he had died, which we read about in Chronicles last time or previously. But it says that they were skilled with hurling stones and shooting arrows out of a bow. But it says the right hand and the left, right? Um, it's kind of ironic, right? I know brothers and sisters in Benjamin probably have a laugh about that, as the name of Benjamin, right, meaning son of the right hand. But you read about in many situations, like with Ehud, the judge of Israel, him being left-handed, or Benjamin being skilled with both right hand and left. Even though the name is the son of the right hand, they can still use that left when they have to. Sometimes, preferably, right? So it says in verse 3, the chief was Ahiezer, then Joash, the sons of Shemaah, the Gibeathite. and Jeziel, and Pelet, the sons of Asmaveth, and Berekah, and Jehu the Anthothite, and Ishmaiah the Gibeonite, a mighty man among the 30 and over the 30, and Jeremiah, and Jehaziel, and Jehanan, and Josabad the Gederathite. And I'm going to take my time with these names to make sure I get the accents in the right place. This particular Bible I like because at least it shows what syllables you should accent on, and then it has the curly sign as well as the straight line that show when you get to the vowel if it's like a long sound or a short sound when you pronounce it, as far as English pronunciation anyway. Verse 5, Eluzai and Jeremoth or Moth, and Bealiah and Shemariah and Shephatiah and the Harathite, Elkanah and Josiah and Azareel and Joezer and Jeshobeam, the Korhites, and Joelah and Zebediah, the sons of Jehoram of Gedor. And of the Gadites, there separate themselves unto David into the whole to the wilderness of men of might and men of war, fit for the battle, that could handle shield and buckler, right? It was like a smaller shield, whose faces were like the faces of lions, and were as swift as the roes upon the mountains, right? So look at what it mentions here, right? It says their faces were like the faces of lions, talking about Gad. And we know Gad is who today we refer to as the indigenous peoples of the Americas, namely in the North Americas. So like here in the Caribbean, up in Canada, right? I think up there they're referred to as the First Nations, right? But that's will be the children of Gad when you go into the breakdown on the 12 tribes chart. And then it mentions whose faces were like the faces of lions, right? Going into um, when you go into how they would do their, and this carried over into the Americas now, where they would oftentimes have very ornate and elaborate headdresses, right? Where they would make crowns out of feathers, and then also even going into when they would have certain ceremonies or rituals, or when they would do um, warfare, they will put war paint on as well. And you look at any like a 12 tribes breakdown, old and new, you'll see different depictions of that as far as the way they would prepare themselves. Some of us watching now, we might even have history or artifact within our own family showing that either on our father's side or on our mother's side that we had our forefathers that wore these things or depicted themselves as such, at least during certain times. And you might even have like photographs or other artifacts to showcase that. All right. So, oh, I thought it was showcasing already. My bad. So, even you do like a brief search, you can pretty much pull these things up, like I'm showing here, where we see just different examples of uh, similar to where, like I said, they had the feather crown, like set up almost like making you think of like how a lion's mane goes out. It did take on that appearance, but as you can see with some of the headdresses that they would wear, I can pull up some of these different examples, and then you could even see as you go down different examples of them depicting themselves with a certain paint, right, to cover their face as well. Hence the face like lions reference. Here's an older depiction of a chieftain named Flying Hawk. It's coming up in my search, but just some depictions here we can look to get a more, I guess, modern day version. But just recognizing this is something that they've done for quite some time, even before they were called Native Americans, before the modern era that we're in now. But this being a civic part of their characteristic, because even though we're all one nation, we're we're a nation of nations. We just talk about us being a company of nations, right? So just something to think about, something to consider as a visual aid. But let's continue on where we left off. I'm not sure how long this is taking to kind of switch between screens, but let me continue on reading about Gad here. It says, and were swift as the roes upon the mountains, right? I know we were talking about this before too. I think in one of the classes going into how swift David's mighty men could move, and talking about how we're going to be in the kingdom, even the weakness of us being like how David and his mighty men were, but then the house of David, or the ruling body in the kingdom, is going to be on a level of like the angels, as far as being able to manipulate elements, maneuver, move around, etc. So the Spirit is willing to work with us. It's all about our righteousness and our fruit of the Spirit, how much we're going to put forth. And then with that, how much the Most High wants to impart unto us as he sees fit. But yeah, that's 1 Chronicles 12 and 8. But now we're in verse 9, right? It says, Ezer the first, Obadiah the second, Eliab the third, Mishmanah the fourth, Jeremiah the fifth, Attai the sixth, Eliel the seventh, Johanan the eighth, Elzabad the ninth, Jeremiah the 10th, Machbenai the 11th. So it looks like we've seen Jeremiah come up at least 3 times already, not just in the list of men from Gad, but also the list of men that came out of Benjamin too. Just let us know, certain names you'll see them being given to more than one person. Even though when we think Jeremiah, we obviously think of the Jeremiah who has his book named after him, the famous prophet, most notable during the time of the Babylonians when they were the chief power, right? Much later than this time period that we're reading here. But just want to make sure when we see certain names that we don't maybe confuse one person with another person, right? Because the key is to see who they are, but then also to see what time frame is talking about, so we don't get them mixed up. Just like now, you had the same thing then, more than one person with the same name. But it says in verse 14, 1 Chronicles 12 and 14, these were the sons of Gad, captains of the host. One of the least was over 100, and the greatest over 1,000. So this is right on brand with the tribe of Gad, right? Because what does it say when we go into the prophecy concerning Gad? We can get it real quick and then continue on. But if we go back to Genesis, right? Referring back to the 12 tribes breakdown, right? So in Genesis 49, in verse 19, once again, Genesis chapter 49 and verse 19, it reads, Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last, right? So the metaphor here, I guess you could say maybe not so much the metaphor, but like the irony, right? This going into a future prophecy concerning Gad, how they will fight against the United States cavalry during the time of the 1800s, right? And those different wars that were fought here in America, where you have Esau coming and spreading out and taking over Gad's land, right, and pushing him southward, pushing him westward, right. We read about this in history. Sometimes I have to not go into certain levels of detail, like the Seminole Wars in the southeast, or the Trail of Tears, as you had many of them being pushed towards the Midwest, like areas like Oklahoma, and being forced to resettle there, right, as well as many other battles, right, that we fought with the U.S. Cavalry against General Custer and others. But that name Gad in the Hebrew actually does mean troop, right? And it would parallel them as far as them being large in numbers, and how they would be set up as far as not just when it comes to warfare, but even in peacetime, how they'd be set up in troops as far as how they would move, how they'd be set up in different parts of the country, as far as like their migration patterns, especially Gad in the Midwest. They will migrate with the bison. But then going back even further, when he was first named, when first born, as far as him being given this name Gad, you go back again to Genesis chapter 30 in verse 11. Genesis chapter 30 and verse 11, it reads, "And Leah said, because Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, was the one who bare Jacob this particular son, Gad, she says, a troop cometh, and she calleth his name Gad," right? So a troop or a company cometh when calling him Gad. And like I said, that name carrying on that significance later on, going into how he would be numerous and plenteous as far as his numbers and how he would orient himself. So Spirit overshadowing Jacob's wives to name them these things. It's funny how they would name them things, be it Rachel or Leah, and they would be talking about something maybe at that time, but then it would parallel into something that would happen for them much later. And we see Jacob speak to that, especially in 49, or the 49th chapter of Genesis. But then even Moses gave prophecy about that as well when you're reading Deuteronomy 33. But just want to read that prophecy as far as that name meaning troop and what it would mean in different time periods. But we see it even manifesting itself here in 1 Chronicles 12, when it says, once again in verse 14, "These were the sons of Gad, captains of the host. One of the least was over 100, and the greatest over 1,000. It says in verse 15, "These are they which went over Jordan in the first month, when it had overflown, when it had overflown all his banks, and they put to flight all of them of the valleys, both toward the east and toward the west." So you look at them on the map and where they were situated as far as where the Jordan is. We can see where they will pretty much cross over to go to that particular part of land. But it mentions at the first month, which we're in the first month now too, but that the Jordan had overflown at that time, right? So just kind of going into that occurrence taking place. I guess it might be something to look into as well, as far as maybe how often that might have happened throughout history. If that was a rare occurrence, or if that was just a one-time thing here that's just being mentioned in this particular scripture. Reading on in verse 16, 1 Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 16, it says, "And there came of the children of Benjamin and Judah to the whole unto David," right? So two of the chief tribes are a part of what was known as the Southern Kingdom later. But at this point, it was the tribes that were allied unto Saul at first, now unto David. And this would also include Levi, who didn't have a plot of land, but they were situated all throughout Israel, including the southern part of Israel where Judah and Benjamin were. Reading on in verse 17, it reads, "And David went out to meet them, and answered and said unto them, If ye be come peaceably unto me to help me, mine heart shall be knit unto you. But if ye be come to betray me to mine enemies, seeing there is no wrong in mine hands, the God of our fathers look thereon and rebuke it. Right? So now even David is putting out there and saying, look, let the Heavenly Father be the judge when it comes to, you know, who I am, if the Most High is dealing with me or not, and if I'm coming to you justly uh, to establish or address um, my now anointing to be the ruler over all Israel. So he's pretty much having the Most High be there as like an intermediary, right? To say, are you guys going to look to me as your ruler now? And if you are, look to me and see if I'm worthy of being acknowledged as a ruler, right? Judge me according to my ways, and let the Most High be the one to show that forth. Oh, I just went back to the chat. Sorry. Yeah, there was nothing wrong with that, with them dress themselves that way. We oftentimes decorate ourselves with skins, whether it be like clothing for coats, right, as well as dress headdresses too. It's just different tribes might have went about things a little differently, and that was one thing that Gad did too. Like I said, we have evidence of that in the scriptures, even during this time of David, which was BC times, but then that will carry over into what they would do here in the Americas later. But yeah, nothing wrong about that. Sorry, I just flipped back. So they was on a different tab from sharing the screen earlier. The issue that came in with the children of Gad and the northern tribes in general was just them, not worshiping the Most High according to the law, right? They started to incorporate other things, like calling upon like spirits when it comes to like animal spirits or nature spirits, or getting into certain forms of like ancestor worship, right? Um, and I think he's supposed to represent the Most High, but you hear a number of tribes refer to the Most High as Great Spirit, right? But that's really supposed to be referencing the Most High. But you would see, like I said, with those tribes, other tribes here in the Americas, even us that were on the western coast of Africa as well, and even in parts of Europe, we had like aspects of the law, but then we mixed it with other things too. So you saw that going on too with our people on the western coast intermingling with Ham, and then doing similar things when it came to ancestor worship, uh, and then calling upon spirits that were associated with certain animals or aspects of nature, right, to get certain results, which is pretty much what the heathen have always done, right? They've always tried to anthropomorphize things in nature, be it like plants, animals, the heavenly bodies, and then associate them with gods. Once you get on that road, it becomes a slippery slope. But back in First Chronicles 12, I'm in verse 18 now, where it reads, "Then the Spirit came upon Amasai, who was chief of the captains, and he said, Thine are we, David, and on thy side, thou son of Jesse, peace be unto thee, and peace be to thine helpers, for thy God helpeth thee." So this Amasai, he was another mighty man, captain of the host that David had made peace with, but now he's another one similar to Abner that David made peace with in times past as well. That Joab, didn't uh, take lightly to him as far as him being like a chief power, maybe someone that could rival his power. And we read a story about him being a little bit bloodthirsty, wanting to take out, I can't even say a little bit, but to want to get revenge for him killing his brother Asaph, right? But then we see the same thing here with this Amasai. You go into that story back in Second Samuel's, him pretty much setting him up and taking him out of the picture as well. This judgment falling upon Joab's head later on when it came time to pass the torch from David to Solomon, right? But we read through that before, in times past when we started getting into Second Kings, the first couple chapters. I should say First Kings, the first couple chapters. We read that history before. If you go back in the catalog, you'll see that breakdown then. So Masai was another mighty man similar to Abner that Joab would take out of the picture when you read the story. When you go back to 2 Samuel 17, it goes into more detail about it. But here he's making peace with David, acknowledging his authority, as far as the Most High establishing his authority. It says, Then David received them and made them captains of the band. And there fell some of Manasseh to David. So remember, they were in that region too, like in the center part of Israel, and like northward, maybe east and west Manasseh, right? They had pretty big plots of land on both sides of the Jordan. It says, when he came with the Philistines, I'll read it from the top again. There fell some of Manasseh to David when he came with the Philistines against Saul to battle, right? It's going going back to First Samuel's, those last couple chapters, like 27, going to up to 29, when he wasn't sure, like, if Saul was ever going to be able to break peace with them. So he said, I guess the enemy of my enemy can be my friend, at least for a time, to where he had teamed up with the Philistines for, a certain point, but it wouldn't last long, because the Most High would eventually take King Saul out of power, as was promised, and then had that be handed over to David. Because you had that when David was on a run from Saul, where he would use his relationship and alliances that he had built with some of the nations that we had fought with, or others that had made peace with us. He tried to see if he could leverage whatever relationship he had with them for self-preservation of himself and those of his men that were following him. First about 400, and then building up to 600, and then increasing, going forward. So just different things you can kind of take from that, as far as, it not being a strange thing that the Most High could do this for us. We still acknowledge them as the Most High's made them to be our enemies, but for our righteousness' sake, especially when we're in a bind, it's an easy thing for the Lord to have the nations work for us. If anything, when we serve the Most High, what we're supposed to, that's actually the role they're supposed to play, right? They're supposed to be an ally unto us, right, to help us out. But it's when we go against them, oftentimes, that's when the Most High will make them a thorn in our side, where we have to fight against them. And then, if we continue in our wickedness, He'll have them just become fully, or have them fully dominate us, take power over us. You can just write down the scripture Jeremiah 15:11 that speaks to this. You have to get it, but you just write it down, where it talks about how it should be well through our remnant, and the Most High calls the enemy to treat us well in the time of evil and the time of affliction. Because remember, the Most High controls the hearts and minds of all, not just Israel, but all of us. While we have our choice, based on our choice, the Most High can either influence us one way or the other, based on the choice, whether to serve Him or to serve something outside of Him. And He can move the other nations around as like chess pieces to help us out when we serve Him with righteousness. But yeah, Jeremiah even speaks to that in his time much later. But back to First Chronicles 12:19. I'll read it again. First Chronicles chapter 12 and 19. And there fell some of Manasseh to David when he came with the Philistines against Saul to battle. But they helped them not, for the lords of the Philistines, upon advisement, sent him away, saying, He will fall with his master Saul to the jeopardy of our heads. Right? So a short-lived alliance, right? Even when David went to go to Achish at first, when him and Saul first broke bad with each other, where David overheard them talking, and they weren't sure. They said, "Wait a minute, is he being sent here, as like a spy of King Saul?" Then the women sing songs about him, saying, Saul killed his thousands, David his 10,000s. And in hearing that, he pretended he played the role of a madman. He feigned madness, said he wouldn't be captured by them, and held as a prisoner. So it's just some interesting times that you read about. You can gain a lot of nuggets and draw wisdom from. You read about that period of David being on the run from Saul. And just for this verse 19, you can just write down 1 Samuel 29th chapter, which it's only 11 verses, but you can just write down that whole chapter as a link for what we're reading about here in First Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 19. So 1 Samuel 29, and verses 1 through 11. Going to get more of a background story on this. But now reading on to First Chronicles chapter 12 and verse 20, it reads, as he went to Ziklag, there fell to him of Manasseh Adnah and Jozabad and Jediel, or Jediel, and Michael and Jozabad and Elihu and Zilthai, captains of the thousands that were of Manasseh. So we even got Michael there, right? We know Michael being the name of one of the chief princes, the archangels of the Most High, right? So we could even have names that they had, right? We have Elihu too, and that name, at least in my mind, makes you think of the young man that was observing Job at his tree fence. You go back into the book of Job. But once again, this was before that time period. It's another brother of the same name. Reading on in First Chronicles 12 and 21, it says, and they helped David against the band of the rovers, for they were all mighty men of valor and were captains in the host. For at that time, day by day, there came to David to help him until it was a great host, like the host of God. So comparing it to like God's host for multitude and for might. So once again, this is like the build up for David is uh, consolidation of different heads of the tribes, right, and their armies and their companies that they had with them. To link with 12 and 22, when I think of the host of God, I think back to Jacob, right? If I go back to Genesis real quick, and it's funny because this place in this city would be a chief place that Saul, who was king before David, will kind of have set up as like a temporary chief city, before eventually it would fall to Jerusalem. But the same place where this happened, what we're about to read, um, it was where the Jacob saw the host of God, like we saw here, where David's host being compared to the Most High's host. Remember, guys, we talked about this, I think, during the class a couple days ago. But we're angels, just like the Most High's host are angels. Remember, angel just means messenger, right? To quote another brother that I heard, he said, we're like angels in the flesh, which is correct, right? But now that's the role as Israel that we're supposed to play. The sons and daughters of Jacob, we're supposed to be angels in the flesh. Just like you have Esau, the wicked, they will be considered devils in the flesh, right? Who can be helped with spiritual devils, just like we can be helped by spiritual angels, right? And that name or that title that they have is interesting too, because both of them are tied to the spoken word, right? The seventh sense, which is speech, like it tells in Ecclesiasticus 17 and 5. Angels are referring to delivering a message, that context being, like a gospel or a good news. Whereas devils, it's tied to speech as well, where the title devil means a slanderer or like an accuser, someone to speak against somebody, like how Satan did against Job, not giving him the benefit of the doubt given his situation. So it's interesting how those titles, angels and devils, both tied to, are both connected with speech, in that we know angels and devils, they both regardless of rank, they all take the knee to Christ, who's on the right hand of God, who is the Word of God. So, you know, the power of the spoken word, even at this level, we know it has its merits, but even on that level too. Uh, Genesis 32, I'm going to read verse 1 to link with 1 Chronicles 12 and 22. Genesis 32 and 1, it reads, "And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, 'This is God's host,'" that we just read in Chronicles. And he called the name of that place Mahanaim, right? Which, when you look that up, it just means two hosts or two camps, right? You look at that translation of that Mahanaim. But like I was saying before, like we read about in previous classes in Samuel's and Chronicles, we read about Mahanaim being like a makeshift capital for a time during King Saul's reign, and somewhat transitioning from him towards David. But David, he would be set up in Hebron first, and then finally in Jerusalem. But yeah, just want to read that concerning the Most High's host. Genesis 32, verses 1 and 2. Let's go back to 1 Chronicles 12. Let's read 1 and 23 now. 1 Chronicles 12 and 23. It says, "These are the numbers of the bands that were ready, armed to the war, and came to David to Hebron to turn the kingdom of Saul to him, according to the word of Yahweh. Children of Judah that bear shield and spear were 6,800, ready armed to the war." So then we got the roster for the children of Judah, 6,800. Nice, nice. It says the children of Simeon, mighty men of valor for the war, 7,100. So 7,100 for the children of Simeon. Remember, they were in the south too. When you look on the different plots on the maps, you see how Simeon's plot was inside of Judah's plot. You look at the southern region of the land of Israel. Then it says in verse 26, of the children of Levi, 4,600. So you got 4,600 of the children of Levi, right? Because we know why they didn't have a plot of land, they were situated within different cities throughout the tribes. We know the cities of refuge being 6 of those chief cities, but not just those cities, right? You read in the scriptures, it goes into how many they had altogether, which I believe it was 42 cities. 6 of those on top of that, making 48 total, if I'm not mistaken, as far as where Levi was situated. Let me see. I wasn't thinking of that verse before. Let me see if I can find that verse real quick for you guys, just as a reference, just something to read up on if you're interested. Oops. Yes, I was right. End of Numbers, second to the last chapter. You can just write this verse down as a reference. This is Numbers 35. Numbers 35, 1 down to verse 8. So link this with 12 and 26. Just a little background info on where they were at. But yeah, Numbers 35, 1 through 6. I'm sorry, 1 through 8. And I'll just read verse 7 where it says, "So all the cities which ye shall give to Levites shall be 48 cities. Them shall ye give with their suburbs." And then in verse 6 it says, "And among the cities which ye shall give unto the Levites, there shall be 6 cities for refuge, which ye shall appoint for the manslayer, that he may flee thither. And to them ye shall add 42 cities." Right? So 42 plus 6 making 48 altogether. And this going into like not so much like what we say a witness protection, but a manslayer protection, where if you kill someone by accident, if it wasn't according to your will, the next of kin of that person could come back to get revenge, right? If they wanted to avenge the blood of whoever you killed by accident. But the key would be for you to get to one of these his a refuge first, which would be like a base. If you guys remember playing, tag back in the day, and you had base. If you touch base, the person it can't get you, right? Think of like the city a refuge like that. Once they crossed in there, right, they had a sanctuary. But if you didn't go there, the avenger of blood was within their rights to come after you, right? That's what it's talking about when it says, "You shall appoint the manslayer." Not the same as a murderer, right? Because the why is different. The why for the murderer is different because it's something that you did premeditated, right? As they say today, right? To slay your neighbor with guile, right? You lied in wait, as opposed to, like the scriptures say, the Most High delivered them into your hands, where it wasn't something that you tried to do, just kind of something that happened by accident. Let's go back to First Chronicles 12. Once again, that was Numbers 36, 1-8. Now I'm going to read about certain families within Levi, namely the sons of Aaron. When I get to verse 27, it says, "And Jehoiada was the leader of the Aaronites," right? Meaning the people of Aaron. So his particular family, which within Levi, we had the priests come out of that family, right? And with him were 3,700. See that? So 3,700 with him. Then it mentions also too, and this Zadok's going to come up also, as I think we read about him also when we went through Kings, but he will be very important as well. It says, "And Zadok, a young man, mighty of valor, and of his father's house, 22 captains," right? Because he was a high priest as well. There was a high priest named Zadok that came out of the house of Aaron. Which you read about during David's time, and then transitioning into King Solomon's time as well. But now, reading on in verse 29, it says, "And the children of Benjamin, the kindred of Saul, 3,000, for hitherto the greatest part of them had kept the ward of the house of Saul." Right? So we were talking about before, going back to 2 Samuel, the earlier chapters, where while David and his men and his house fought against Saul and his house, they were able to broker a peace, and yet a number of Benjamin that sided with David after Saul's death. So the key is, you want to think about this in any situation. If you can, resolve conflicts, it's better to do that than to go to war, right? For any nation that has any type of power, right, or even a company that has power, if you're competing with a different country or a different company, it's best if you can sit down and try to negotiate terms for peace, where even you might benefit this person, might be an opponent, but that might be smaller than you or might not have the same advantages as you, to where you can merge them into your company or into your country. Which I think, and from a country standpoint, they refer to it as like an annexation, where a ruler might say, "Look, we see that you outman us and out munition us, right? Your logistics are just stronger than ours. Let's just come to terms, and we'll become a part of your government, right? Where the people are preserved, right, and the resources are preserved, but then they just come to those new terms now." So you have that. It says, I'll read 30 now. It says, and of the children of Ephraim, 20,800 mighty men of valor, famous throughout the house of their fathers. So look at that. So now we got the tens of thousands when it comes to their totals, right? So the other tribes, they had thousands. Now we got 10,000s of Ephraim, right? Which we know that goes along with their namesake as well. You go into their name that they were given, meaning fruitful, right? And how they got that name. And we kind of touched on that in more detail about Gad, because we don't read about them a lot. But yeah, with Ephraim, their name being fruitful, as they would be a tribe the Most High would add unto, to quote their father Joseph's namesake, as he would to Manasseh also, his other son. Reading on in verse 31, it says, and of the half tribe of Manasseh, 18,000, which were expressed by name to come and make David king. And of the children of Issachar, check this out, which were men that had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. Heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandments. Now, usually we'll read about uh, the house of Aaron, and namely the high priest, and who will be the high priest after Aaron amongst his sons going forward. That he would have a breastplate. You read about the design of that in Exodus, towards the end of the chapter, the last couple chapters of Exodus. It goes into how the priests were to be adorned, right? And the high priest, namely. And it talks about the breastplate he would put on with 12 gems representing the 12 tribes. But then I also mentioned he would have these crystals called the Urim and the Thummim, which, when you translate those words from the Hebrew, means light and perfection, right? Now, they would use these crystals more or less to discern future events, right, from the Most High. He would impart that unto them. But even with certain tribes, the Most High would give and disperse certain gifts, certain talents to them as well, to where it wouldn't just solely be with one tribe. You would see other tribes that might have that ability as well. And when we look at Issachar, who today are being referred to as the Mexicans, now, we know Mexico is a country. You have many different nations there. We're talking about the indigenous peoples of Mexico, which were many. We tend to only hear about the Aztecs in particular when it comes to like an empire or like a kingdom. But you had many different tribes of Issachar that were throughout the land of what we call Mexico, and even coming up into parts of North America as well, even beyond the what they call the Rio Grande now, right? Yeah, many different tribes of Issachar. Like I said, the Aztecs as being one of the more famous ones. But we even read about that in today's history, about how Issachar, or the Aztecs, namely, is usually tied to them, how they're really good when it came to reading the heavens and setting up calendars, right, to measure when certain things would take place as far as change in seasons, weather patterns, and that came with those change of seasons, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll just I show you like this, kind of like I showed you the headdress of Gad. I'll just share my screen again. You guys can see when it comes to the calendar, and even with even without the same quote unquote sophisticated tools that we may have now, when it comes to planes, trains, automobiles, men going to and fro, or knowledge being increased, databases, networks, operating systems, etc. We see here that they were able to develop this during a time when they try to claim in Europe, people were in the Dark Ages, right? Now it's more so talking about their fall, because even our people back then, that were in Europe and North Africa, things like that, we were, delving in science, setting up libraries in the, western coast of Africa, things like that. They tried to downplay those events. But even with the Aztecs, from the time that they had left under the Assyrian captivity in the BC times, around the 8th century BC, and then being settled here in the Americas, they developed calendars like what I'm showing here, different depictions of the Aztec calendar. So I can zoom in real quick so we can get a better view of some of these. Here's an artist depiction, and then we see with each time period to have like a different logo or character for each of those. Here's a stone version of the same. Let me see. I think the one I usually see is they usually showcase this one. If I can get that a little bit bigger. Looks like the name they gave it was Zeuf Zeophohuela. I'm totally not saying that. Zeu Hueli. Yeah, I'm definitely need to practice. And this website's pretty much going into details as far as being their months a little different, but all in all, they covered the different parts of the year, different seasons, right? As far as the change in seasons, but this being something that the Most High gave them even before this time period, right? We're looking at this now in our more recent history, but this is something that Issachar had as a blessing, as an insight, right? And this came up too when we were reading Wisdom of Solomon, right, some weeks ago, where he talked about how he was given that insight just as a king, among other things, but to know like the beginning, the end, and the midst of time, him being privy to that as well. So let me remove this. We can keep going. I'll read that verse again. But yeah, like I say, you do a quick search into that, and you'll see just how the Most High's prophecy is true time and time again. And now we have to be the children of Israel. Just given all the different clues and characteristics about who we are as a whole, and then even specifics as far as traits that our tribes have individually. I think I got a message here about resources being short. Let me close this tab out real quick. Not sure if Jayla's watching. I got rid of the tab, so I'm down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm down to 8, just so that we could have a smoother service. Okay, looks like we're back. Not sure if we had glitched for a second there, but yeah, you just do a search on Aztec calendar. You'll see it. A number of sites will come up showcasing what Issachar built during that time period. Looks like we're kind of choppy here, but if you guys can't see us anymore, if we start to slow down, just let us know in the chat, please. I'm close some of these tabs here so that we can free up some resources. But in case I got too choppy, I'll just add it one more time and then close it back. But this is a specific site that I have pulled up, but I think we froze. So I'll just share it again real quick. And here's the picture of a replica of the Aztec calendar's stone system. And this gives different explanations of the different parts of the calendar and what they were depicting. Okay. I clicked it, but it looks like okay. Thawada Hasham, he said I'm good. I don't think that was showing that time either, but I'll just scroll down real quick. Um, this coming from this website called Allocation, but going into the symbols on the Aztec calendar, their meanings, reading, etc. Something like what we would call a zodiac, right? And with Issachar, like other northern tribes, and just like the southern tribes too, the wisdom the Most High, the blessing the Most High would give us, when coupled with the idolatry of the nations, would then defile our talents, unfortunately, which then led to us being led into captivity. That's why a lot of the southern tribes were taken from parts of Europe and the western coast of Africa, and northern tribes were taken or captured here in the Americas. Because we had different knowledge when it came to like different herbs, medicine, being able to study the heavens and make sense of things, like we see here in the case of Issachar. But because we'll couple that with wicked practices like deifying the host of heaven, the sun, the moon, the stars, or deifying animals, doing different types of sacrifices, even child sacrifices. In some cases, that's when the Most High had to bring us down now. Our gifts became curses, and the Most High had to punish us. All right, so let me remove this because every time I try to share this, it's like a lot of ads on that page. But let me just remove this and let's keep going. Think of it. I didn't think about this until now. Let's see here. Let's see if I can find something later in this that pertains to that. All right, so let's continue on. It says in First Chronicles 12, I'll read 32 again. It reads, "And of the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times, to know what Israel ought to do, the heads of them were 200, and all their brethren were at their commandment." Right? So just, like I said, I was sharing that with you as far as um, the Most High blessing that tribe with that insight to be able to look at the heavens and be able to discern future events. Um, we have, like I said, a corrupt version of that now with the horoscopes and the zodiac, which zodiac just comes from the word, just means animal wheel. But there was a time when whether it was Issachar, whether it was Solomon or other figures, right, Moses, where we were to look into the heavens, and you could pretty much see the scriptures in the heavens, right, to where you could see the Most High's will just by looking and having that insight to see what the Most High's plans are. But like I said, due to our transgression, that gift on that level, it's been muddled, it's been distorted, and now we just have half measures of those same talents. When you see people talking about getting their horoscopes read or doing tarot cards, these are all just, like I said, a corrupt counterfeit half measure of what we used to be able to do in righteousness when observing the heavens. But now reading on in verse 33, it says in First Chronicles 12 and 33, of Zebulun, such as went forth to battle, expert in war, with all instruments of war, 50,000, which could keep rank, they were not of double heart. Check that out. So they were pretty deep as far as numbers too. Instruments of war they had. It says they were not of double heart, meaning, these guys wouldn't get afraid in battle, right? When they went to go to war, they were committed, right? And they weren't backing down. And I know we talk about the Aztec calendar, but even the Incas, I mean what do you call it? You read about the Mayan calendar as well, which the Maya were another empire of Zebulon, not the only family of Zebulon, but one of the more prominent ones that we read about in history. You read in the scriptures about how Issachar and Zebulon would visit each other uh, and do different sacrifices with each other that started off once again righteously, but then over time those bad habits creeped in. Things we learned from the Egyptians, things we learned from the Babylonians, the Assyrians, they would creep in, and these things would become corrupt. But yeah, they would produce calendars as well. So when you look up like Aztec calendar and Mayan calendar, you'll get similar depictions where like it'll be a wheel, but the logos might look a little different. The characters associated with each month might be a little different, but you see a lot of the similarities to where it wouldn't be surprised if they didn't exchange notes, not only in ancient times, but even in more recent times, like the times that we're in right now. Um, this is, I'll read that scripture real quick just to go with Zebulon or number 33. This is Deuteronomy chapter 33. Deuteronomy 33, I'm going to read verses 18 and 19. So Deuteronomy 33 and 18, it says, link this with 12 and 32. I guess you link with 31 also. Yeah, you can link with 31 also. But Deuteronomy 33 and 18, it says, and of Zebulun he said, rejoice, Zebulun, in thy going out, and Issachar in thy tents. Verse 19. This chapter is like Genesis 49 we read earlier. We read about Gad, a prophecy or prophecies that Moses gave concerning the different tribes of Israel. It says in verse 19, they shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifice of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of the treasures hid in the sand. It's going into their lands and their ports being very rich, right? Which we even see today, like how Ephraim, and Ephraim is not only Puerto Rico, but that's like one of the main islands that you find the tribe of Ephraim, as far as the Boricans and the Arawaks, but they're spread throughout the Caribbean. You look at where they're at, but you even have down there where Zebulon is in Central America, you have Costa Rica, which is similar to like how you have Puerto Rico. You have Costa Rica and Puerto Rico, which just means uh, rich port versus rich coast, right? As far as the Spaniards naming it that when they got there and saw the resources that they could muster, was where the Panama Canal would be set up in latter time. It's talking about that prophecy as well, as far as the abundance of the seas and the treasures hidden in the sand, going into that corridor being a major port for trade. And the prophecy in Genesis 49 talking about Zebulon should be a haven of ships. So we see that prophecy follow them in history from this time even up until the time that we're talking about as far as our recent history and current events. But this, like I said, was talking about after they left the Assyrian captivity, like it tells us in Exodus 13, landed in the Americas and situated in certain parts, right? Zebulon, Issachar being what we call like Central American regions, and then how they would go and visit each other and do sacrifice with each other. And when you look at the history between the Aztecs and the Mayans and the other civilizations in between, it may have not been as noteworthy. You can see that exchange of knowledge, exchange of you know insights into different things. And those calendars are two things you can look at and kind of do research into to find out more uh, about how the Most High blessed them. But I'll stop there. So let's go back to First Chronicles 12. Let's read 1 and 34 now. But that was Deuteronomy 33, 18 and 19 to link with First Chronicles 12, 31 and 32. Sorry, 32 and 33. Now we're in 34, First Chronicles 12. Woo! So glad we didn't have to reset. I was hoping we had to reset. I was just talking to the quad here and looked up and I saw something went wrong. So I had to refresh the screens. Looks like we're still live. Uh, Show me around. Can you see us now? So you said you're good, and then you said, "Are you still there?" So you posted it around 2:10. But hopefully, we're back now. It, what's going on? I closed out most of my tabs. But looks like maybe the tabs that I did have open were sucking up a lot of resources. Trying to show you guys that Aztec calendar. But all right, kind of the water. So we're back. I just was making mention about Naphtali being um, the the indigenous peoples that you find mainly in Argentina and Chile, as the prophecy that Moses tells us, that they will possess the West and the South, which is heavy. As you look at South America, you see that's where Argentina and Chile are situated on the west side of South America and on the south side of South America, right? But Naphtali at this time, it says they had 1,000 captains, and with them with shield and spear 30 and 7,000. So pretty big numbers there. 35 says, and of the Danites, expert in war, 20 and 8,600. When it comes to Dan, that kind of a question mark as far as who they might be today. Some brothers have done research to try to figure out, oh, they were this people or that people. But remember what First Corinthians 13, and I believe it's verse 8 tells us, right? Right. Nothing wrong with making a search, but just don't let it be something that you know, whatever you find, just say, okay, you know what, this is a supposition. I can't say for sure because as a researcher, a key point of doing research is to know when whatever you found so far is inconclusive, and just being able to acknowledge that. You might add to it later on, but we know when it comes to the Most High and certain prophecies, some things just can't be uncovered, at least not now. The Most High will add unto us as we research, but then the Most High might block us at certain junctures, just to prove us when it comes to other fruits of the Spirit, to prove our patience, to prove, our kindness, our faith, right? Other things like that too. But yeah, 1 Corinthians 13 and 9. That's the verse, not 8. Concerning Dan. But yeah, it pretty much says that we know in part and that we prophesy in part. It's kind of what we were talking about last night in the service. People trying to make a claim to say, oh, yes, Christ will come back this date, this time. Careful. Don't do that. Right? Scriptures make it known that Christ himself doesn't know. Only the Most High knows. So when it comes to certain prophecies, just leave it be. And then even when it comes to the 144,000 in Revelation chapter 7, we see that Dan isn't even in that list as far as 12,000 coming out of that list. So that's why Dan's not on the 12 tribes chart. Sometimes we get that question, where's Dan at? But Levi is there, right? Because in other settings, you have the 12 tribes and you have Dan kind of set apart. Other times you might have Joseph as one, but then they're not split into two, right? It's like this 12-13 flux you see with the tribes, depending on where you're reading. But Dan has a gate in the kingdom, according to Ezekiel's vision. So the Most High is going to provide and take care of Dan, wherever they may be, however they're going to get their deliverance. Some brothers postulate off that Dan might be mixed amongst the other tribes that we do know, as far as, okay, this tribe is this tribe is that. And that could be very well true too. But ultimately, Christ is going to show us when we get into the kingdom. We'll know in that day. But reading on in verse 36, it says, and of Asher, such as went forth to battle, expert in war, 40,000. Right? It's kind of funny because remember it tells you that Asher, you read the prophecy concerning Asher, that they would be blessed with children. Not to say all Israel wouldn't, but it mentions Asher being blessed with children. I think it also mentions Ephraim being, or Joseph, I should say, including Ephraim and Manasseh, but how they'll be blessed with children too. right? They'll be known for that, and they'll have more of an increase than the others. But like I said, while we all are given the different, insights and visions of the Most High and different spiritual gifts, the Most High will then impart certain things to certain families more than others, right? And that's okay because as a unit, as a nation, together, all our talents come into play, all our gifts come into play, right? But yeah, you have to get it, but to go with 36, you can just write down. Look at that prophecy real quick about Asher being blessed with children, them having larger families. Yeah, so Deuteronomy 33, 24 and 25 for them. And I did mention it before, but if you want for Naphtali, you can also just write down. I mentioned the them possessing the west and the south. Did I lose my place? You can just write down Deuteronomy 33 and 23. So for 12 and 36, Deuteronomy 33, 24, and 25 concerning uh, Asher. And then as far as, so that's for First Chronicles 12 and 36. And then as far as First Chronicles 12 and 34, as far as what I mentioned concerning Naphtali, you could just write down Deuteronomy 33 and 23. All right, so let's continue on. First Chronicles 12, and now I'm in 37. So we can't forget those on the east side of the Jordan River, right? It says in 37, on the other side of Jordan, of the Reubenites and the Gadites of the half tribe of Manasseh, right? Because you read about them going to acquire their land early on, going back into the first 5 books, right? And who they had to go up against on the other side of Jordan. With all manner of instruments of war for the battle, 120,000. So between all three of them, we had this many. So we got a pretty large entourage here. It's coming together, and that's just for war, right? Just talking about the other men that didn't fight in the war, along with women and children, right? It says in 38, all these men of war that could keep rank came with a perfect heart to Hebron to make David king over all Israel. Hebron was the older capital, right? That David functioned out of, that was in the land of Judah, right? It says, and all the rest also of Israel were of one heart to make David king, right? They all came together with that one consent. It was a thing where David didn't, put it out there like we read earlier to say, you better worship me. He said, look, you be the one to judge, right? If you see, if you come to me peaceably, as I'm coming peaceably to you, the Most High will judge you accordingly. But if not, if you come to be, start trouble or to become an enemy, then may the Most High deal with you accordingly based on that choice, right? So it's of the Most High that the Most High would have the other tribes kind of under David now, right, to be the king over the united country, right? Sad we only had rare moments in history like this, but this was our golden age, right? David going into Solomon as far as uh, when and we were pretty much the strongest or the most influential nation in the earth at that time, right? Other nations had their kingdoms too, but everyone knew about us in the land, right? And came to us for counsel, for guidance, for assistance, right? For loans, et cetera, et cetera. This is the time of our power that we're reading about here, and us building up to that. It says in 39, and there they were with David 3 days, eating and drinking, for their brethren had prepared for them, right? So it was a grand festive occasion, right? We've got a new king, right? The Most High is with him. We're with him. Let's celebrate. It says in verse 40, moreover, they that were nigh them, even unto Issachar and Zebulun and Naphtali, brought bread on asses and on camels and on mules and on oxen, and meat, meal, cakes of figs, and bunches of raisins, and wine and oil, and oxen, and sheep abundantly. For there was joy in Israel. So everybody got their best from their respective plots of land in the different tribes, and brought it all together to come to Hebron to celebrate David being set up now as the new king over Israel United. Come. This was a IUID, right? And at this time, pray, right? With Christ there in spirit. Israel United in David. that's a thing, right? So First Chronicles chapter 13 now. It's going to go into a specific story that we read about months ago. We were going through this in Samuel's, right? Namely, we'll as we go through, you guys will see. This was the breach of Uzzah. It's in the title. We finally got into this chapter now, so let's continue on. This is a shorter chapter, but just something we can meditate on and kind of learn from too, as far as this situation. Because even in times of celebration, like being anointed king or going to go acquire the Ark of the Covenant, at the same time, remember all things that we do as Israel. We always want to do things circumspectly, like Paul wrote in his letters. Walk circumspect, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil, right? We don't want to make any mistakes and don't want to second guess the Most High when it comes to his judgment, when it comes to how he wants things, right? There's a reason for all of it, even we can't see it. The Most High said it, we have to consider it. First Chronicles 13 and 1. It reads, and David consulted with the captains of thousands and hundreds, and with every leader. And David said unto all the congregation of Israel, if it seem good unto you, in that it be of the Lord our God, or Yahweh our power, let us send abroad unto our brethren everywhere that are left in all the land of Israel, and with them also to the priests and Levites which are in their cities and suburbs. We gave that scripture earlier in Numbers, right? It says that they may gather themselves unto us. And let us bring again the ark of our God to us, for we inquired not at all, not at it in the days of Saul. So once again, you go back in history with First Samuel's, right? First couple chapters before Saul was anointed king. We had a war with the Philistines back then, and we had a certain conflict where what do you call it? The Philistines got the advantage over us, and they took our ark, right? And it was a great deal, a great situation for mourning, right? For putting on sackcloth, right? At that time, losing our ark was supposed to be our device, our vehicle that showed that or demonstrated that connection with God, where he would speak to us from between the mercy seat, right? So them taking that was like a blow to our morale and our faith. And we saw even it was the Most High's will we would lose, but at least at that time. But even the Philistines taking it, Most High had sort of jacked up the Philistines, right? With it's just emerods and the scriptures, which is just another way of saying hemorrhoids. They put it in their little nasty temple with Dagon, their fish god they would pray to. They would bless them with fishing. And they said they would go in there every morning, and they would go in there, and you see the Ark of the Covenant sitting there. But then you had the idol set up that they got. It was kept fall on his face. Like every time he went in there, it was just face down. It's like, what's going on? Why does it keep falling down? Right. So the Most High, through his means, to show his power over these Philistines and their false god, put them to shame in that regard. Right. To have Dagon face down like that, just to show who's the real power. Yeah, you guys might have won against my people, but don't forget who's in charge ultimately. But we read about that back in the first chapters of First Samuel, right? If you guys remember. So it says, yeah, let's go and get it, because all the days of Saul when he reigned, we didn't have it, right? So now it says in verse 4, and all the congregation said that they would do so, for the thing was right in the eyes of all the people, right? So it's like, okay, we got a new king. Let's check off some boxes, right? Let's see what else we need to get to really set ourselves up to establish. Let's see what things we might have lost in conflicts with these nations. Let's get these things back, right? So, Ark of the Covenant, why not, right? If you look at the tabernacle layout, it's like the most precious thing of all, right? You first get to the tabernacle as far as the main entrance, you got the altar burnt offering there. That's where the people stop. That's as furthest as the people can go. And at that point, it's only the sons of Aaron. And as you go past the altar burnt offering into the holy place, you got the candlestick on one side, you got the table of showbread on the other side, you got the altar of incense towards the back, right? So, you can see, you can taste, you can smell. And as you get further where the altar of incense is in the veil, behind that veil was where the Ark of the Covenant was. And even the sons of Aaron didn't just deal with that thing haphazardly, right? There was a special thing that the high priest would do once a year on the Day of Atonement, that he would go into that holiest of holies. So even the sons of Aaron treated that with respect, but only they were the ones that could handle it. It's kind of going into what we're about to read in this story and what took place and why. All right, so let's continue on. Let me get this too as a reference real quick before I go on. You can just write down First Samuel chapter 7. You can link this with 13 and 3. First Samuel chapter 7. And it reads, First Samuel chapter 7, verse 1. And the men of Kirjath Jearim came and fetched up the ark of Yahweh and brought it into the house of Abinadab in a hill, and sanctified Eleazar his son to keep the ark of Yahweh. It says, and it came to pass while the ark abode in Kirjath Jearim that the time was long, for it was 20 years, and all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. Right? So that's pretty much where the ark had been up to this point in this city, Kirjath Jearim. If you guys remember, in the beginning of our stream, I showed you guys that map, right, where it showed where they were going to go to get it and where they're going to take it to. And it was from the Bible Atlas. Hopefully, it won't cause the resource to go crazy, but I'll just share it real quick again, just as a refresher, and then we'll keep going as far as the story and then wrap up. But let me just show that map again real quick so you guys can see. Okay. And then do the bigger screen. Let's see. Oops. No, what's going on with the? Okay, I think that's good enough. I was just trying to make it where it makes me even smaller, but something's going on with my layout. Can't see all the things I could see before. Oh, okay, here we go. That's the one I want. Okay, so that little submap there you see right there in the middle, right? We can see uh, the white square bubble is pointing to where it says number 7, and it's talking about them transferring the ark from Kirjath Jearim. So that's where the city was situated. I do a little zoom in real quick. Yeah, there we go. Gotta scroll down. I don't move the screen too much. All right. Battle of Ziklag, but yeah, that's where we're at now. And then First Samuel's chapter 7, 1 and 2 goes into where we're situated at that time. As far as the reference, this is going into when actually, yeah, before we actually had King Saul anointed as the king of Israel. We were still just going to Samuel as our last judge at that point. Okay, so let's continue on. Um, okay, there we go. Some weird stuff going on with this. I feel like this page is designed to be responsive, but kind of move around a little bit to get it to show what we wanted. So First Chronicles 13. Now we're in verse 4. I'll read 4 again. And all the congregation said that they would do so, for the thing was right in the eyes of all the people, to bring the ark back from Kirjath Jearim, as I showed you on the map. Verse 5. So David gathered all Israel together from Shihor of Egypt, even unto the entering of Hamath, to bring the ark of God from Kirjath Jearim. And David went up and all the Israel to Baalah, that is to Kirjath Jearim, which belongeth to Judah, to bring up thence the ark of God, the Lord, that dwelt between the cherubims, whose name is called on it. Right? Because remember the Ark of the Covenant was a box encased with gold with a lid, with two uh, cherubim pointing their wings towards each other. Right? You see different artist depictions of the Ark of the Covenant and what they perceive that it looks like based on the description found in the scriptures. It says in verse 7, and they carried the ark of God in a new cart out of the house of Abinadab. It says, and Uzzah and Ahio drave the cart, right? So they put it on a cart to roll it, right? It says, and David and all Israel played before power, or God, with all their might, and with singing, and with harps, and with psalteries, and with timbrels, and with cymbals, and with trumpets, right? So it was a grand occasion, right? It was like a band, right? Like a marching band moving along as they were rolling the Ark of the Covenant back on this cart coming from Kirjath to go towards the uh, new capital city, right? It says, and when they came unto the threshing floor of Chidon, Uzzah put forth his hand to hold the ark, for the ox stumbled, right? So as they were moving along, maybe they hit like a pothole or a rock or something. And it says that the ox stumbled, right? But then it says Uzzah, which when you go into Uzzah and read about this, and we'll get the parallel story because it's in 2 Samuel 6. But he was not of the house of Aaron. You go into Uzzah, right? He was a Judite, and you go into him. But like I said, he was tasked with the, like I said before, um, tasked with just moving the cart along, right? That was moving the Ark of the Covenant along with the oxen that were helping to pull it as well. But like we're reading here in the story, he took it upon himself to try to grab the ark to keep it from falling. Uh, in his mind, thinking that the ark was going to fall to the ground. But what does the law say? We read the scriptures about the Ark of the Covenant. Only the house of Aaron is supposed to handle the Ark of the Covenant. Even in a situation like this, we may think, oh, you're doing a good thing, right? You're, it's not like you would normally do it, right? But just due to the situation that arose, and you're thinking that the thing might fall, you go to grab it. But now, like I said, when it comes to the Ark of the Covenant, Mosai is really serious about who can and can't handle the ark. I'm not sure if it me or is that somebody on a teleconference. Was somebody on a teleconference asking something? I had the volume down. I'm just curious. Okay, just want to make sure. It says in verse 10, 1 Chronicles 13 and 10, it says, "And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Uzzah, and he smote him because he put his hand to the ark, and there he died before God." Right? So Mosai didn't like that. Right? He said, okay, you touched the ark, now I'm going to smite you right then and there. So just imagine dying on the spot for a transgression like that. Let's get it in Second Samuel 6 and compare it real quick. Second Samuel chapter 6. We'll just start from 1 and we'll read up to this same point. But in Second Samuel chapter 6 and verse 1, it reads, "Again, David gathered together all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. Once again, I'm in Second Samuel chapter 6. I just read verse 1. Now I'm in verse 2. Whole First Chronicles 13, right? Because we're almost finished there. It says, "And David arose and went with all the people that were with him from Baalah of Judah to bring up from thence the ark of God, whose name is called by the name of Yahweh of hosts, that dwelt between the cherubims," right? Which, like I said before, you go into Exodus, it talks about how we would build the ark of the covenant. Verse 3. "And they set the ark of God upon a new cart and brought it out of the house of Abinadab that was in Gibeah." That's the one we read about in 1 Samuel chapter 7. "And Uzzah and Ahio," there's Uzzah there, and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drave the new cart, right? So it was a Judite brother, Abinadab. Saw your hand, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say Proverbs 20:24. Men's going is of the Most High. And you can see the problem happened just on the setup. How they set up the commission to go get the ark, it was not well organized because they should have had those who can secure the ark. If something were to happen, they should be the one walking alongside the ark. There was a miscalculation on their part. And what happened to him at that point, it's like it's a quick reflex. It's a quick reflex trying to grab it as it was going down. Then the Most High put him to death. So that's why calculation planning, pre-planning, and go over everything. Make sure that the people that's supposed to be there, they there, but not just like out of excitement, and then you want to do a good deed. Most High doesn't work like that. The Most High is about strict. Follow the plan of what He said, and then move along.
I was kind of going to do that, but after this, but it's all good. I was kind of leading up to that, but sometimes you see it, you just jump in and just say, okay, here's what's going on. But like, thank you, the water. And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab. So I was going to kind of frame it as a question if we read this excerpt too. "And they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was at Gibeah, accompanying the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark." And it says, "And David and all the house of Israel played before Yahweh, on all manner of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps, and on psalteries, and on timbrels, and on cornets, and on cymbals. Right? So similar to what we read in Chronicles 13, but now it says in verse 6, and when they came to Nashon's threshing floor, right? And I think in First Chronicles 13 it says Chidon, but it's referring to the same figure. Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the ox shook it, right? And like you said, yeah, a reflex. It's not to say that, in under normal circumstances, at least from what we can see, he would just be willy nilly just trying to grab hold of the ark, just to. But in his mind, he thought, he was doing a good thing, right? Now, from where the city was that it was at, okay, they built a new cart to use it. But like you said earlier, Khan, it's like even if they had built it, we have to consider all worst case scenarios, right? Where it's just like, okay, roll on the road, we got potholes, we got bumps, we need to make sure we got, some sort of protection. Just like when we do, people do shipping even now, where they'll ship things from point A to point B, whether it be traveling by train, by truck, by plane, sometimes a combination of all three to get from point A to point B. It's a big conversation right now with all the tariff stuff going on, right? Uh, Tariffs here, tariffs going away, and the logistics behind making sure that things are packaged a certain way. We use bubble tape or use certain, uh, styrofoam, things you're going to put in the container so that by the time something gets to a certain place, especially if it's delicate, that you don't get it and it's just like a mess. And we've had a situation before, right, where if it's not like ordering something, it might be luggage, and you got something maybe precious in your luggage that gets lost, and they find the luggage, and then you could tell by the time you open up your luggage if you had something precious in there or something kind of liquid in a container. You say, "Oh God, baggage handlers got to it," because you see them sometimes maybe at the airport. You look over in a little window on the side, you see these guys just just throwing stuff. So it's just like you gotta take these things into account. Like, all right, if I'm gonna try and get something point A to point B, whether it be my personal belongings or something I'm doing for business, you know, pack things a certain way so that they can be cared for.
Right.
You know,
especially with the Ark of the Covenant,
mm-hmm.
you have to have the special, like the Aaron or the priest that's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be able to touch it, even touch it. If something happened along transportation, who can approach the Ark of the Covenant? You're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to have those people there on guard,
Mm-hmm.
just in case, as part of the plan.
Right.
So that's exactly what happened there. The people, they went along. He was the one, guarding it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was appointed to guard it, but if anything happened, like that just happened, you want to have the priest that can touch the Ark of the Covenant there. You know what I mean? So that wasn't put in place. So it was like too much excitement. The parties was wrong. The band is marching. For the party.
Good.
How people get carried away with partying.
Yeah. It's like a good thing, but then it's like a good idea can like get messed up along the lines if things aren't, like you said, handled a certain way. But yeah, but we're gonna see. Let me read on a little bit. I think there's a little bit more. It says in verse 7, and the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Uzzah, and God smote him there for his error. And there he died by the ark of God. So right here it says his error, right? In the side caption here it says rashness, right? But before I read on here, let me read it in the Chronicles, and then I'll come back to 2 Samuel 6. So this is First Chronicles 13. I'm in verse 11 now. It says, and David was displeased because Yahweh had made a breach upon Uzzah. Wherefore that place is called Perez Uzzah unto this day. It's funny, that name, because thinking about Judah in particular, we know when it came to the situation with Judah and his daughter-in-law, right, Tamar, where he ended up impregnating his own daughter-in-law, not realizing it was her. She disguised herself when he didn't give her his next son in line to bear up seed, because his two older brothers had died. That's the law. It's supposed to be the next one in line to bear up seed to the brother that died. So that whole situation, you read about that in Genesis 38. But when she was when she could see children by Judah were twins, and you had one child that was trying to come out first, and then that child just pushed him out the way and came out first instead of the other child, and the other one came out after, and they called that first one Perez, which is the same word as Perez, meaning like a breach. So between the two twins, the one was coming out first, and he said, "No, me first," and he came out. So it's funny that breach. We see that breach come up again, at least with Judah in particular. But so that's what they named the place after that situation. And in Second Samuel's 6 and 8, to parallel that verse, it says, "And David was displeased because Yahweh made a breach upon Uzzah, and he called the name of that place Perez Uzzah to this day." And then back in First Chronicles 13 and 12, First Chronicles 13 and 12, it says, "And David was afraid of power that day, saying, How shall I bring the ark of God home to me?" So it's like, man,
Oh, you messed up.
yeah, we were like halfway through the procession. Now this happened. Everyone's obviously just like shook up by it, like, oh man, damn. Folks might be even overthinking the situation. Like, maybe we shouldn't have got it at all. When it's just like, no, it wasn't that you should, because folks can sometimes jump to the conclusion when a bad thing happens. I should have never called so and so. I should have never went outside today. I should never woke up today. If I didn't wake up today, this bad thing wouldn't have happened. It's like, relax. It's just the reason why this happened is right. Like you said, we just should have considered, like, what are the worst case scenarios, taking it from point A to point B. And no need to for analysis paralysis with that. It's just like, when transporting things, what can happen? Something can fall, something can break.
Everything you have to consider risk management.
Mm-hmm.
Anything is risk management.
Yep.
There's a risk involved. You have to find out what is the risk involved in what I'm doing. Because what you're doing, if it comes to fruition, you already know what the outcome's going to be. Now you got to counter for the risk.
Right.
You got to manage the risk into what and it goes to anything.
Yeah.
For example, when you have investment and all that stuff, it's all risk management.
Mm-hmm.
You got to consider the risk management first before the profit. The profit, you already know. Once you do this, you expect profit.
Right.
But the risk management, people always neglect the risk management.
That's true. I know we talk about negotiations, business negotiations, political negotiations, et cetera, et cetera. They talk about those same things, right? Like warranties, remedies, right? Warranties, as far as like, at the very least, you get this if we make this agreement,
right? Or
like a remedy, if things kind of go south, here's what we guarantee to have in place to alleviate the situation,
right?
Like a fail-safe.
Kind of like when you're talking about, since that's the topic now, the tariff. Mm-hmm. When you're gonna go to the tariff, you have to consider the risk. Mm-hmm. Clearly, the risk is considered, but it's not considered in the favor of the masses. Mm-hmm. Because can they sustain long-term, downturn of an economy? Mm-hmm. As their savings, it's not there. We're gonna destroy them at the expense, for the benefit of the corporation who already have reserve cash flow, right? Who can sustain long-term, economic turn down. But for the small people, they cannot. Right. The majority of them can. Right. But for you going in there and doing all this risk, then you're not assessing the people. Are you really working for the people? Right? No, you're not. Clearly, it shows it, but most people won't see that.
They just present it as, we're trying to bring business back. We're trying to bring, America as a producing leader back, and it's just right. Like, that ship has sailed, my friend. We're too far gone, integrated into a world economy at this point. You might be able to do it in some arenas, but as a whole, I always laugh. I take the trip going up towards coming from Philly, going towards New York, where you go take the trip going through Trenton. You'll see that bridge, like going up 95, and you get to the point where you go through Trenton, you'll see the bridge. And it used to say Trenton makes, the world takes. But you see the letters are like broken. Some of them are like not working anymore, right? Like eat at Joe's, now it's just like eat at O's, or at Joe's with the eat. It's like not working. The lights are broken. You said this is like a photograph. It's like an ironic picture showing like, yeah. Now I was talking about Trenton being, I guess, a producer of certain goods and services, but a lot of cities used to make, right, here in the States, but not anymore. Over these last couple decades, they've made a concerted effort to shift a lot of production overseas and other places, right? But yeah, just seeing that sign broken, we're supposed to say Trenton makes, the world takes on the bridge. It's it's very very ironic, but it's I guess it speaks to the time that we're in. But yeah, where do we leave off in Second Samuel's chapter 6? Uh, verse 9 goes along with First Chronicles 13 and 12, where it pretty much says the same thing. David was afraid of Yahweh that day and said, "How shall the ark of Yahweh come to me?" But now, as a solution, what do? Let me read the rest in First Chronicles 13, and then I'll read the rest in Second Samuel 6, because only 2 or 3 verses. So First Chronicles 13 and 13, it reads, "So David brought not the ark home to himself to the city of David, but carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite." It says, "And the ark of power remained with the family of Obed-Edom in his house 3 months, and Yahweh blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that he had." Right? So just showing how the Most High, he's everywhere, but then the Most High can put his name in a certain place or with a certain thing. Right? Just like his name was always there in Jerusalem, which would be the capital city. But then we see just when it came to the ark, right? It just had the Most High Spirit was with it wherever it went, to where it was like they might say in the world, oh, it's a good luck charm, right? Or you got like a bracelet, or like a necklace or like a talisman. You get the nations, they always have those little things on the left hand side, they always like rub. And I'm starting to see more and more commercials for this stuff too. I know I was joking with Kahan and other brothers about it. Like you see like more and more commercials on like YouTube and like other places, like watching shorts or watching TikToks. You see these commercials where it's like somebody telling a story and say, "Oh, I was down and out. You know, uh, my family broke up. Uh, my loved ones passed away. I lost my job. I was down and out. Then I met a strange man on the street. He gave me this bracelet. And I said, 'What the heck is this bracelet?' I put it on, and all of a sudden my life started turning around. So I getting those phone calls back, right? Family didn't reach out to me anymore. That was alienated from that. Family reaching back out to me, all because I got this bracelet. You know, and finally get to the end of the video. 5 easy payments of whatever .99 plus tax. You can get this bracelet too, and maybe your life can be changed." But now we know that's on the left hand side. But now when it comes to the Ark of the Covenant, think of that, but just like so many magnitudes on a higher level. And clearly, this Obed Edom too. Don't just think of it as, oh, it's the Ark of the Covenant in and of itself, but it has to be also this Obed Edom being someone had a certain modicum of wisdom, right? If you read the story in Samuel, you'll see that, to where he received that blessing, uh, uh, not just because of the ark in of itself, but also how he was and how his household was functioning, being the ones to be caretakers for it, where they treated it with care, and then the Most High responded accordingly, right? Because someone might misread that and just say, oh, just because the ark was there, good things would happen. But we know when the Philistines took it, and they put it in their temple with Dagon, right? It wasn't good. It wasn't doing good things for them, right? It was a thorn in their side to where they were saying, "Oh man, we gotta get rid of this thing. We got hemorrhoids. Every time we go into the temple, Dagon, the idol, our idol's on its face down. We gotta get rid of this thing, right? So a blessing to one man, but a curse to another. But ultimately, it's the Most High, right? And what the Most High wants to do. That's like the overarching thing, to where you know we don't now take the Ark of the Covenant and make it like an idol. That's what happens with the nations. They'll take these amulets or tools or beads or whatever, and they'll say, "This is the thing that's doing it." Whereas with us, the Most High we might have a thing, whether it be like Aaron's rod, or in this case, Ark of the Covenant, but it's ultimately the Most High working through this and working through you in your proper state of mind. That's where the blessing comes in. It's like all those things in concert, not just the object itself. You know, I'm thinking of another example too with the I think I've even seen some televangelists talk about this and even try to sell it. But the that story in the Gospels where Christ healed the man of blindness. I think it was at the pool of Siloam. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Where he got like the water from the pool of Siloam, they mixed it with like some dirt, rubbed it, and rubbed it on the guy's eyes. And he's like, "Wow, I could see." But now us that have eyes that can see, ears that can hear, and a heart that can understand, we read the story and go, oh, "Okay, Christ has used that as just like a conduit," but it was really the man's faith in Christ where he was able to have his eyes healed. But now these televangelists, you see these guys having these commercials where it was like, I'm not sure if they did it recently. I remember kind of catching it by accident on a Sunday. Like it was a Trinity Broadcast Network where they went to that same pool and were able to get some of the water, and then they were they were selling little jars with this water from the pool of Siloam. And you already know people got duped by that. Going, oh, the same water that Christ used that he mixed with mud, or they get the clay from there, and they say, "Yeah, this clay has special healing properties, right? Let alone the water. If I buy some of that water and I put it on me, maybe I'll get a blessing too. I'll get healed from my illness." Not realizing it was a combination of things. It wasn't just the water from that pool or the mud that was at the bottom. But yeah. So we're gonna make sure we don't make the Ark of the Covenant into an idol, right? Because it's very easy to do that. But you go into the story of this Obed Edom, that comes into play, right? It's not just just because it's in my house, but who he was also, and how he was conducting himself. Back in 2 Samuel 6, it says in verse 10, so David would not remove the ark of Yahweh unto him into the city of David, but David carried it aside into the house of Obed Edom the Gittite, and the ark of Yahweh continued in the house of Obed Edom the Gittite 3 months. And Yahweh blessed Obed Edom and all his household. So whether you're God's chosen people, whether you're of the house of Aaron, whether you're a stranger, right? The Most High is going to deal with you accordingly, right? As far as your works, right? So while the Most High does have a hierarchy when it comes to Israel, even within Israel, you have certain families the Most High sets apart, like the house of Aaron, for example. And you got other nations who are set apart from Israel as our people are the chosen, whereas they're not. Now, if they act accordingly and respect what the Most High has laid out, Most High is not just going to smite them or destroy them. No, He's going to deal with them according to justice, not just, oh, you're another nation. How dare you have the Ark of the Covenant in your house? Let me just smash you real quick. No, if you conduct yourself accordingly, then you're going to be dealt with justly. That's the thing with Christ, where when he set back up the ruling in the planet, the people, the nations, they may not get it at first, but when they finally realize to see who Christ really is and how he conducts business, they're going to love to serve him. They're going to love to serve us, right? Because by serving us, they serve him, right? Because we're going to deal with them according to justice, not due to dominance. What the nations are used to now is the rule by dominance, not by justice. That's Esau, right? I do what I can because I have the might. What are you going to do about it, right? That's the motive today, right? My sister and I make a joke. We call it the iron rule instead of the golden rule. You got the golden rule, which is what Christ is what represents. Do unto others you would have to do unto you, right? But then with Esau, it's the iron rule, which is do unto others that you would do unto them because you can, right? That's the mode that Esau operates in. Once again, like we're talking about with the whole tariff situation, we see, America, as it's falling to pieces due to its debt and its lack of production base. It's doing what it can to try to maintain its leverage. This whole tariff business, which is like a lot of nations looking at Trump and America as a whole, as far as their government, just crazy. Like, what are you gonna do with this? Where's this gonna go? Right? How is it gonna really benefit everybody? It might even benefit you in the short term, but what are going to be the second and third order effects of this if you really keep this thing going? And now Trump says, "Oh, okay, 90 days, all right, and I'll bring it back." It's like, what's really going on here? right? But us that are called to this truth, prophets and prophetesses watching, we're excited because we know it's what sign of times that what America is going to fall down, and then the Most High is going to bring in our kingdom next, right? As as the priest of Bach always says, the we got next, right? But let's show that in the scriptures. And I mentioned it, I think, last night in the service, but let's read it real quick since we finished up here. But yeah, this is Second Edges chapter 6. Second Edges chapter 6. In verse 9, Second Edges chapter 6 and verse 9, it reads, "For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth." Because he was asking what these different things he was being shown, what they were meaning. And then he even made a reference, read above in verse 8, where it says, "And he said unto me," as far as the angel talking to Ezra, "From Abraham and Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau." So maybe another breach of sorts. So we talked about Judah's children, the one grabbing the other, pulling them back, right? For that story. Now we got the story between our nation and Esau and their nation, right? Where Esau came out first, but then we were holding on to Esau's heel. Just that incident when we were born at that time, years ago, that had a symbolic significance that still hasn't fully played itself out just yet. But when the kingdom switches over to us taking power, that thing that happened long ago, just as us as little babies, is going to play itself out in this prophecy. So it's kind of heavy. Just the how things can happen, kind of like we were talking about earlier with like how Gad got his name, right? From Leah, and then how his name would take on importance as a tribe, how he would be, a troop, numerous when it came to how he'd be set up in his encampments during David's time, and then of course them fighting against the United States cavalry and losing for the other prophecy. All that going back to them being given that name Gad, meaning a troop. All these things play their role, play their significance. And sometimes it may take years, decades, centuries, millennia to be fully realized. So it's really heavy how the Most High has all these things laid out, this included. But yeah, just wanted to read that real quick, just as a little motivator. 6 and 9. It's easy to forget as we are stuck here in this captivity. But remember, like we always talk about, we said only the Most High knows when Christ is going to come back. But we say we're waiting on Christ, but really Christ is waiting on us. He's been on us and all our branches that are out here doing this work to spread this true gospel, which can't be Christianity, so-called, because that's everywhere. Right? You see that in even the rarest of islands, the smallest of islands, all throughout the Pacific, the Atlantic, etc. But the gospel we're talking about right now, who are we as a people? Why are we in a lower state as a people? What to do to get out of it? Right? What those are the gospels we need to be pushing, right? And keep pushing so that it can go for witness unto all nations. Because Christ can't come back until we do our part as far as that's concerned. To go with 2nd Esdras 6 and 9. You just add this again. This is in Matthew, as far as what I'm talking about right now. So that's the thing that's the scripture you always want to go to. You say, man, where's Christ at? So then I talk to different brothers and sisters, and they'll say that, man, how much longer? Right? And your question is a good question. But gain the wisdom as to why we still have to wait. Matthew 24 and 14. Matthew 24 and 14 reads, "And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come." And at all nations, the context there is not saying, oh, every nation. Yeah, they're going to hear it, but really the focus is, are people scattered amongst all nations, which is part of the curse, part of that judgment, right? Yeah, everybody needs to hear it, but the focus is for us to reach out to our people wherever we're at, throughout the Americas and abroad. And that's we can at least say that's the prerequisite for Christ to come back. So we got to do our part before Christ could ever even have a chance to come back, based on the word. All right, so last links. So 2 Samuel chapter 6. Make sure you have this in your notes, and then we'll wrap up. 2 Samuel chapter 6. Verses 1, you can stop down at, sorry, I closed it. Let me go have to get it again. 2 Samuel 6, 1 down to 11. Links with the First Chronicles 13. Yeah, pretty much First Chronicles 13, whole chapter. But yeah, that's pretty much where you find that same story. But yeah, you could say maybe from 9 down to 14. It speaks to that those events specifically. But ultimately, First Chronicles 13, you can find it in 2 Samuel's chapter 6, 1 through 11, which is that story also depicted there too, to show a harmony of the Gospels, a harmony of the books of history. Okay, so looks like next time when we pick this back up, we're going to be touching. They're talking about David's relation with Hiram, king of Tyre, to gather raw materials to be used to be building the temple eventually. Solomon comes to play, but right now we're still talking about David and him gathering raw materials from folks he'd meet during his reign, etc., etc. And then we'll finally get the, like I said, 3 months it was there at Obed Edom's house. When we pick up again next time in chapters 14 and 15, we'll get when he actually does bring it to Jerusalem. And like we were talking about earlier, right, Kahan? You got to do it right this time. You know, they're actually going to be successful and get it to its destination. You know, and then some other things that happen there too with the house of Saul, namely Michal, King Saul's daughter, a little exchange that David has with her. But I guess that's just a sneak peek. We'll get into all that 3 weeks from now when we pick back up on Chronicles. Thawada for joining us today. Like I said, we got a late start, and we ended late last night here at the school celebrating the Passover, or Pesach in the Hebrew. Thawada for joining the service today. Hope you guys were edified. Sorry about some of the glitching and some of the screen sharing I was doing because it was acting up somewhat here and there. Next week, we're going back to Revelations, and look forward to that as the elders has brought out beautiful edification, these Sabbath services, bringing out that prophecy and revelation. That's such a hot topic with folks to where it's like, oh man, I didn't know Revelations was actually that approachable, you know. And you just break it down, and it's connected with other scriptures, you know. Because usually when people mention Revelations, it's like, oh my goodness, oh Revelation, oh so much, so dark, huh? Exactly. There's so much hype and fanfare about it, but it's like, well, hold on, just take this image here. This connects with this. This connects with that. Just put the piece together. You go, oh, this is what's happening. All right.
And when you read the Revelation, people say it's the end of the world. It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on your perspective on how you understand Revelation as the end of the world. What world? What end? Right. So it's the end of this rulership, this system. So if you're happy with how this system is being run, then you know Revelation is not good for you. You don't like Revelation,
right?
But if you're upset and know that you are a slave in this kingdom and you want to get out as an Israelite, you know who you are, then Revelation is a good thing because it's the end of the world of Esau and the beginning of it that followed.
Right.
Hence, we got next.
Right. Come. Yeah. It's like you watching a sporting game, and you got one group of one team, one group of the other team. This is like, you ask afterwards, how was the game? Oh man, the game was horrible. You ask another person who's rooting for the other team, how was the game? Oh, it was an awesome game. Oh man, I loved it. It's like, yeah, because your team won. Yeah, man. So all praise be to the Most High in Christ by way of the Holy Spirit that we're on the winning team. But yeah, it's going to be Revelations 21 and 22 next Sabbath. Will be the 19th. But also too, if you guys don't already know, we're in the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, doing the Passover service this past night. I don't know, many of you that are watching now were watching us last night too. Just don't be vexed if you go through your house again. You might see something that kind of slipped your grasp, or you might have overlooked. Like, oh man, that's leaven. Just remove it if you come across anything. Because I remember, doing the Passover first couple years when I first came to the truth, I would miss things. So I wasn't very keen on always knowing what to look for. So, it's definitely a process that you'll perfect. You try your best to find everything before, but if you see something during this week that has leaven in it, you're like, oh, how did I miss that? Don't beat yourself up over it. Just get it, remove it, put it, either throw it out or put it in your cellar or basement or shed, whatever area you have that's like not in your immediate dwelling. Just put it away. But don't vex yourself over it. Just do it accordingly. Don't look at it and go, oh, I got leaven, and just say throw your hands up, just leave it. No, get rid of it once you're aware that you have it. Move it. But don't beat yourself up over it, okay? Especially if it's like your first couple years in the truth, and you're still perfecting the art of the Passover.
Right. And another thing is good practice to look at the label of the stuff that you are consuming.
Break it out.
Right.
Break it out.
Look at the labels of the stuff that you're consuming, because once something go into your stomach, it's a wrap. So before it goes in, find out what you're putting in. Right, so that way you will know what you're eating all throughout the year. So you already know what has leaven, what has this, what has that, right? And you arrange your diet, right? Because it's a lot of stuff that they put in the thing. If it has too many ingredients, you cannot even recognize. Just don't consume it. Right, because there's too many stuff that you cannot recognize. Because food is not that complicated. Right, it's avocados, bananas. But once it starts going into a bunch of stuff that you cannot pronounce and you don't understand, you stay away from it.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Avocado ingredients. Avocado. Banana ingredients. Banana.
Right. Avocado, banana, salt. This time and third, boom. That's it.
Plantain ingredients. Plantain. It's a plantain. That's it. Yeah, that's a good point. And if you guys have heard it before, always remember, you guys might have heard this already, but just with supermarkets, the edge, everything goes down at the edge of the supermarket. 9 times out of 10, the stuff that's on the aisles outside of like buying stuff for paper products or toiletries for your bathroom, all the food that's in the aisles, in the frozen food, food section, stuff like that. That's usually the stuff that you look on the label, like you said. You got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ingredients. It looks like you got to be a food scientist. You got to know organic chemistry to be able to break down what this stuff is.
Sometimes there's so much stuff they even put it really, really small so that they can concise. That's it. If you got to do that, I don't need it.
But the edge of the supermarket can't go wrong. Produce, deli, right? Poultry, right? Dairy. Yeah.
What can you put in chicken that it got so much stuff in it that you cannot figure out what is that? And they even change pork language into you cannot even recognize if it's pork anymore.
Woo! This guy's a slick. This is Esau. He's a slick devil, man. He's a slick slanderer. You gotta watch this guy. But yeah, just take these things into account this week. And watch out for the blind side, because I know 1 year, my second or third year, I think I had a rental car I was using for work. I was after the service, I had to drive back to Connecticut where I was going for work, and it was like they never did this at the rental place. I think I was turning the car back in after like the service, whatever, and they had like a thing where it's just like, oh, free pretzels, like, you know, like the big puffy pretzels, and like, you know, I was kind of running a little bit of sleep, driving in the car. I was like, oh, pretzels, okay, yeah, thanks. And I got them. I think like I started to bite it, and I was like, I stopped myself. I was like, oh my god, like it wasn't on the list, but it's like, oh, of course, pretzels are using leaven because you know like they make them real puffy. You have like the ones that are like smaller, but you have like the puffy ones that they use leaven to have them rise up. So I said, okay, let me add that to the list and just make sure that I just warn others in case they maybe fall into something similar. But yeah, it'll always be like convenient. Like they'll never have cupcakes at a place or at your work, and all of a sudden they just go, oh, cupcakes. And like if you're not, if you at work, it's a Passover, you're not really thinking about it, you're doing work, and it's just like, okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah. Oh man, oh, the Passover, oh, unleavened bread, oh, Mosai, Mosai. You gotta run to the bathroom, pray to Mosai, Mosai, please, please forgive me, Mosai, please. Don't do it. Don't do it.
For cheesesteak, never had cheesesteak for a long time. All of a sudden, that's all you have a feeling for cheesesteak.
Yeah. That too. Stuff like you said, stuff you never really. And that's temptation in general, but it'll be temptation especially during this week because the devils they know the law, so it's like, he's one of God's. He's one of God's called. Let me see if I can thumb off his or her game. And like you said, now all of a sudden it's like you smell the bakery, like you never smelled it before. You walk past the bakery, it's like, oh, the bakery. Oh, it's the fourth day. Keep walking, keep walking. Yeah, it'll jump out at you in 3D. The commercials, you see commercials all the time, billboards all the time. But now you're gonna catch the billboard like Dunkin' Donuts, and you can see like now you look at the billboard like, wow, I never noticed it being that colorful, that bright. Wow, look at that, man. Yeah, look at that donut, boy.
Even brushing your teeth. That's common. Yeah, people do that every day, right? Or supposed to. You can't get away from baking soda in toothpaste, right?
Right. Come.
Alternative is easy. A little bit of salt, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of lemon, a little bit of ginger. Boom, that's your toothpaste right here. It ain't gotta be, get all that bubbly thing in your mouth.
Right.
That's pretty much what's attractive to people in toothpaste.
Right, come. Yeah, and it's funny because those processed things, they pretty much model themselves after the what do you call it, the homeopathic way of doing it that we've done it for so long. And you've seen people, with so much less tooth issues before these things started getting mass produced, like even sugars and starches and things like that. It's just like, where did we go wrong? Why did that have like all these different things to serve as band-aids for the innovation? I thought the innovation was to help us, but it's like these innovations and these errors so many times are designed a way where they come with so many other side effects.
Right. And if you wanna soak your mouth, get some cloves. Boil some cloves and then gargle it. Call it a day. It ain't got to be that complicated.
I was thinking peroxide, but okay. Like some basic hydrogen peroxide.
Yeah, because the clove is good because even toothache, you ain't got to use anesthesia if you have a toothache. You just get some clove, boil it, and then gargle it and keep it in your mouth for a little bit. Boom, the toothache goes away.
Right. Kung. That's what they get Novocaine from, right? Okay. Something to look into. But yeah, Kung, Thawada, for bringing those alternatives out. Hopefully, folks that are still watching, they might take a little note, like, oh, let me try that. Oh, I knew that. Or maybe in the chat, you guys might have something you might want to put out there. Yo, guys, check this out when it comes to, your underarms. Check this out when it comes to, like you said, brushing your teeth. Check this out when it comes to, whatever. But yeah, once again, I can't say it enough. All things be the Most High in Christ and the Holy Spirit, because it's funny how these laws are timeless, but no matter where we go in the future, think about a law like the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And it's a celebration, but a feast where it's like it compels you to pretty much unearth all the different things that Esau has created around the Most High's creation, to try to confuse us. We got a law that just compels us to expose what he's doing. It's not like we have to figure out and like follow him, every step of the way. Just like the law itself will protect us in so many ways we just don't realize. But that timeless, ageless wisdom, to where we don't have to go and do like what it says in Obadiah. I'll read this to go along with Edge 6 and 9 real quick, where it talks about Esau's hidden things, right? The Most High, he's the Lord of hiding things. But Esau wanted to be like the Most High. He tries to hide things too, but it's on the wicked side, the left hand side. But yeah, this is Obadiah. Obadiah, verse 6, which reads, "How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up?" My Bible has explanation points to where all the creation, food, clothing, shelter, plants, animals, minerals, Esau figures out a way to weaponize it, turn it into a weapon, to make it lethal. It's really astonishing. But I guess as a hunter, he got bored, with hunting the Most High's creation, and said, I have to hunt men now. He's just taking it to another level. But yeah, even that point of wisdom to like know who we're dealing with and his motivations is a comfort too. To where now, like they want to always do with their analytics, right? Their data science. We can predict him now. We can say, "Oh, I know who you are. I know how the Most High made you, so I can more or less anticipate the probability that you will say or do this, given the situation." Where we're not caught off guard just by knowing and meditating on the Most High's commandments and His prophecies, you know. But yeah. If anything else comes up, we could talk about it during a Tuesday, and then I think the closing service is going to be this next Thursday coming up. But in the Tuesday class, if you don't reach out to brothers and sisters individually about maybe specific questions about ingredients or what have you, uh, definitely write down questions for the Tuesday class coming up so that we can go over it. If you do have a question about unleavened bread or anything, but if it's about unleavened bread and what Esau's got going on, because yeah, I'll just say Obadiah verse 6. Esau's a busy bee. Since he's stolen us as a people and capitalized off of our labor over generations, he's got a lot of money, especially his elite. They got a lot of money to what? Create think tanks and hire all the best experts, their supposed, Ivy League and top research places to figure out all the little aspects of the Most High's creation to then try to tweak things. So yeah, they're operating on borrowed time, which allows them to go into a lot of these things. But once again, just meditate on the law day and night and applying it, to your personal situation, just stuff you see on the news. Always try to apply it to God's laws, God's prophecies. Whereas is it a prophecy being fulfilled, or is it a law being broken? That's all you need, just right here. One book. Was it not? Says that song, all I need is one mic, only needs one book. We had the song will be all I need is one book. That's all we need. So Shar, Pasak, Wa, Shabbat. Happy both of those to you guys. We'll do the closing prayers now. I have to thank you guys again for joining us. It's like it's up on 3:30, but looks like we're a little under a Roman watch as far as 3 hours for the services. We started around 12:30 ish. But it was a pleasure going through the lesson with you guys, seeing you guys' participation in the chat, and then kind of quiet here to help out with the first and second chapters as far as insights, things you may have not considered. So yeah, let's enjoy the feast. Let's enjoy the first day, as the second day begins when the sun goes down tonight. But I think everybody that's here watching has the list as far as the menu. But just email me or ping me if you guys need me to forward the menu as well as the modern names 11 to anybody that's keeping it and has a question. just let me know and send me the email. I'll forward it to them. Or anybody that I am sending text messages to that didn't receive it or they can't find it, just let me know, and I'll forward it to you again. And like I said in the beginning, if you do come across things you didn't notice when you did your sweep over these last couple of days and before, don't beat yourself up. Don't beat yourself up over it. Just say, "Oh, I missed this," and then just kindly remove, either throw out or remove out of your dwelling. All right. So that will do the closing prayers. So Shar Pasak Wa Shabbat once again. Shalom Israel. Enjoy the feast. Do the closing prayers. Oh, oops. Almost forgot. Got to do the housekeeping. Got to do the housekeeping. Check for Levin in the house real quick. So every Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m., you can call 667-770-1085, access code 521455 for our teleconference. And we had that also in tandem with www.profitabletalks.com. Just go to that website on the web browser or whatever device you're using, whether it be a phone, a tablet, a laptop, or a desktop. Make sure you have Zoom loaded or installed on that device, as it'll bring that up and ask you to log in with like your Gmail, whatever account you have set up with Zoom. And you can join us, person to person, face to face, and see us, and we can see you and go through whatever questions you might have at those same times by that same link. Also, too, if you wanted to donate to the school, whether it be tithes or like a donation for a holy day or just a free will offering, send your checks or money orders to Ha Yashar Al Kanas, the way you see it spelled, H-A, and then YASHARAHLA. That's spelled that right. Kanas, K-N-S, 3826B, Germantown Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19140. And if you want to donate or contribute electronically, we've got paypal.me/HYK12. Once again, paypal.me/HYK12. And then also directly through Zelle. You can Zelle us at the number 646-620-7378. Once again, 646-620-7378. Please like and share the video to boost our videos in the algorithm, as well as other brands of Christ that you may watch to get edification from, so that we get closer and closer to meeting our requirement, so that we can realize Matthew 24 and verse 14 that we read earlier, so that the end can come, so this gospel can be preached in all the world for witness unto all nations. Okay, I don't think I missed anything, but that's the housekeeping, right? The housekeeping this week is going to be the removing 11. Okay, so now we'll do the closing prayers. Parakati Yahweh by Shemi Awashai, Asharam Tananao, Par Yagapin Thwada Aman. La Yahweh by Shemi Awashai, Af Yashra. English translation. Blessed be Yahweh, name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine, thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. Just in case I didn't say it, and I said Revelation, but it's Revelations 21 and 22. I think I said next week, but the 19th. But Revelation is 21 and 22. Do you want to read ahead? Amadwa, Panyawa, Jerusalem, stand up, face Jerusalem. Yahweh Basham, Yahweh Babakoshe, Shemai, Lanawe, I fed Yam Yan, I fed Shavak, Mike Allah, Walla Allahayim, Tazwadakim, Le Shemar Ayub, Barak, Rapad, Magan, Wat Chaziak, Banya, Yash Allah, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabim, Kakamad, Rabim, Da'if, Rabim, Bayanad, Rabim, Sabalanwath, Rabim, Mamawan, Rabim, Aqua, Rabim, Mahabim, Rabim, Haganad, Rachanaya, Wasalak, Ka, Katayam, La Akim, the Akiwap, Wayash Aleph, Yed, Waiwalam, Basham, Yehosheth, the water, Amen. English translation, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us now. Right now, send Michael and the righteous powers to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins. For the brothers, sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you. So be it. Four Corners Prayer. Yahweh Basham, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawe, Wayash Aleb, Wabat Yasapariam, Shemai, Yashville, Yahweh, Nawe, Yahweh, Aked. English translation. We said, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, please listen to us. Sorry. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us in Israel in the house of books or the school. Then we said, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. So once again, Ashar Shabbat, Wa Ashar Pasak, Wa Ashar Chag Hamatazawath. In other words, happy Sabbath, happy Passover, happy Feast of Unleavened Bread. Enjoy the day, enjoy the week. Most times we'll talk to everybody in the Tuesday class or beforehand if you got a question. Shalom and Manakha Tawab. Good afternoon.